The resources they mobilize for themselves. They don't really have politics. There's no political organization. There's nothing like, there's no ideology, but they are localized. This is misleading to the state. The state is now misled to things. That concentration of power makes it as if they are powerful. They are not. It's a concentrated but limited power on some part of the state. It also misleads them in assessing the insurgents, because the insurgents don't have one unifying leader or Politburo. Yes,
they're not seen as a direct threat to the power of the center.
Yeah. Okay, they don't immediately threaten the capital city because they don't project themselves as a viable alternative. But because they are localized and autonomous, they are highly mobile. They can embed themselves. They are well accustomed to the terrain. They know their society. They are extremely effective as insurgents. And traditional armies like NDF are not accustomed to fighting this kind of war. That's why the army is now drained. NDF, whenever they confront, the NDF beat these rebels. But the rebels have figured out they don't confront them. So what's the impact of this? It's like it's eating the state from every angle. There is an animal called EAE, I don't know what's it called, I think wild dog, I think. Like one wild dog will not bring down an elephant. Yeah? Elephant is big. But what do they do? Many of them just jump on it from different directions. They keep biting, running, biting, right? It might take them 24 hours. But they cut down the muscles and they wear down the big, powerful animal. And finally, either they bring it down or a wind or another bigger animal comes and topple it. So that's what we saw in Syria. Because this kind of insurgencies, what they do is they obstruct the economic activities. They obstruct security. So domestic trade, domestic agriculture, foreign investment dries up eventually. And they wear down the army. Eventually the state's capacity gets so consumed that it could not withstand any other any other change of direction of the wind like we saw in Syria.
What does comprehensive peace means then in this dynamic, in this changing dynamic?
When I got out of prison, I gave interview, and in that interview I said there was no Fano has not rebelled on the government. They were disappointed with reproach with Tigray, and the government was talking about disarming after distributing them 100,000 AKs. They want to collect weapons. I said I wouldn't prioritize physical collection of the weapons. I would prioritize on disarming the mind. What pushes people to the jungle to pick up a gun? It is sense of alienation. It is a sense of victimization. It is desperation. It is disillusionment with the political establishment. In Ethiopia, it is the tightening of the political sphere, the elimination, sidelining of the established political elite, the moderate, seasoned political leadership that the youth looked at, and whether they're from Gimbi or Hararge or Gondar or Gojam, the kids, even in that non-democratic system, they always thought so and so speaks for us, so and so can influence. We can influence that guy, so we can influence the decision making at the center. All of a sudden, any notable figure was eliminated from the political scene. And when they saw, and these are young people who believed and actually did carry the current government in their shoulder to the throne. They expected to be rewarded with jobs and democracy and security. Now, no democracy, no jobs, and in their kabbalists they get beaten, harassed, killed by the local militia. So, and they don't have anybody to appeal to, they don't have anybody to speak for them. That is what pushed these young people to the jungle. So, the first thing to do is to disarm the mind. The first thing to do is to stabilize the political discourse at the center. People talk about this TPLF division, shameful, sad, yes, but you cannot detach what's happening in Meghalaya from what's happening in Addis. It is a lack of a strategic leadership, a lack of a leadership with countrywide view Mengistu was brutal, but he saw himself as a protector of the state, and he projected himself as such. Whether they loved him, they hated him, he cared about what village people did. So did Mallas, and so did Haile Selassie. And when two clans fight, they saw that as a threat to the state and threat to their authorities. Also intervened. What we have right now is when two political parties, two rebels fight, we have a leadership at the center who cherishes it. They see it as part of strengthening their power. But what that was doing was fragmenting the society, fragmenting the population. So the first thing we have to do is realize that this situation needs to change, that we need to open up the political space slowly, not all of a sudden, make everyone feel this is a shared country. It doesn't belong to one man, it doesn't belong to any faction, it belongs to everybody. Bring back, before you bring back the insurgents, the radicalized, bring back the normal politicians, have a conversation with them, stop talking down to them. They are shareholders of the country, let them have their opinion, have conversation. You see, the problem is from where Abiy comes, the way he views power. There's two views of power. Last time I wrote on the standard. One view is bottom up, that you start from the bottom, you mobilize people, you organize, you earn your way up to the leadership, and you owe your power to your support structure, your constituency. There is another inverse view of power, which is power is top down. You are anointed by God, right? You are literally, Abiy sees himself as the God Almighty's representative in Ethiopia, right? Once, it's not only him, there is that ideology comes from that side. Once you see himself as anointed by God, you are appointed there, you don't share power, you give power. Pay attention to the letter when he appoints people. That letter is very telling. These two-line letters. He gives power, right? He gives power. One of the issues with OLA, one of the silly issues was he didn't mind giving them power as much as the mediator said that in Oromia. But he didn't want power sharing. You don't share, because how do you share what God gave you? What God gave you, you donate.
But isn't that an elected party? Don't they say elections have consequences? We have election in 2021, and I think one of the regions that largely went out for the election and gave the mandate to the ruling party is the Amhara regional state, which is at war now with the federal government. And that's the argument. I'm trying to be the devil's advocate here now. We are elected, right? So we have a mandate. The Ethiopian people have given us a mandate. This is what the government says. So what power share could possibly be done there to stabilize the country?
You see, elections have become, back in the day, authoritarian rulers used to resist election. Now, they have found them a very useful tool of renewing their legitimacy and clinging to legitimacy. In Ethiopia, there has never been a real election, never. And the last one was worse than all of them, because it actually did not take place in a lot of places. So I don't want to go into really silly debates when we come to the election sides. But power sharing, you cannot go away from power sharing in multinational, polarized, plural society. Power has to be negotiated. Whether the elites come to the front through election or through other means, the pie has to be negotiated. The slice of pie each side in the constituency has to be negotiated. That's the only way you can actually stabilize a multinational state, a plural society. You cannot do it without that. The first step is, of course, to agree on the rule of the game, but after that, it has to be constantly negotiated. Kenya is a good example of it, and pretty much every democracy, even the established democracy, is a constant negotiation of alliance building, power sharing. Power sharing is part because a country is a shared company. Every citizen has a stake in it. Every segment of society has a stake in it, or a claim to a stake in it. In that situation, you cannot tell them, everything is mine, I will donate to you. If you have a share in a bank, the bank has to give you dividend every year, right? It has to share the dividend of the profits. Can the CEO say, I donate whatever I wish to this one, to this one, to this one, or he has to negotiate and proportionally distribute? Right? That's the way we have to see a plural society. The view that one man or one party during period and one man now, takes all of it and gives to whoever he wants and sidelines anybody, even if they have bigger share, is not sustainable, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Elections coming up. Do you see the election happening in Ethiopia now in a year and a half time, given the trajectory where the country is currently? The last election, I was mentioning it for the sake of argument, is that I'm very much aware that there are quite significant areas do not even vote until 2 years down the line, or due to conflicts and due to other logistics, inaccessibility logistics. We just like that we're approaching another election now, and where do you see that? Is it going to happen, and B, if it happens, what are the scenarios that we're looking into?
I remember I was the big election guy, and that was my conversation used to be with Abiy and others. No, I no longer think about elections, because talking about election right now is it's just not realistic. I don't know what the law says, but in different countries, one election is considered legitimate if it takes place either 2/3 or 3/4 of constituency. Ethiopia has 547 seats in parliament or constituency. It has to take place on what? Probably more than 400, 450 places. The states, for election to take place, the state has to have control over that amount of territory and population. The current state's effective control is probably less than 1/3. So in that situation, we cannot really have a legitimate election. They wanted to do census. Why do they keep postponing it? Because practically, physically impossible to do it. And next election as well, you can pretend, you can claim it has happened, but to have any semblance of legitimacy, I don't think, and I think it just complicates the problem. It just complicates it. They had election remember when we were begging them, let's use this opportunity of COVID to settle down, and they went to the election, and the Amhara region voted for them, right? That's actually one region where there was some semblance of stability. They voted, or Addis Ababa. Look at what's happening now. Elections are things that come after we reach political settlement. That is, once we agree on rule of the game, how power changes. Basically, what's politics anyway? Politics, at the end of the day, once it's stabilized, is about elites and their constituencies bargaining, competing for a slice of the pie. So, in the current situation, where that is just not there, I think if I was them, I wouldn't waste my money, my resources on election.
So, by way of this is a very interesting conversation we're having. By way of exit, I wanted to bring you back to the book, which you called "I Don't Regret." Is this a signal for your constituency that you are going back to